Hey there, welcome back to Tennille Talks. So this reading is giving me something like a divine costume change. So really quickly, the story of David and Goliath. It was always assumed that because of the size of Goliath, he was a giant. Not only was David just a normal size human, but he was also a young he was in his youth, right? And so for someone in their youth to be able to slay and kill a giant is like, none of us would have put our money on David, right? And we would have been very smart not to do so. And so this is essentially a reading about a miracle. And a miracle, it requires a storm, or else it can't be a miracle, right? It requires something to be bad, something to go wrong. It requires some type of chaos, some lack of control, in order for what happens next to even be considered a miracle, right? So in your life, storms of the past are passing, right? And so this is the season where dreams come true. And considering what you've been through, in many ways, this is a miracle. But these are the moments in our lives when we can say without a doubt that our life is guided. And so if for most of your life you were David, overlooked by your family, considered to be weak and useless, possessed no specific skill set, right? And so because of how you were perceived, you were overlooked. All odds were against you. People bet against you. People bet on you, with the outcome being your downfall. And so when I talk about a divine costume change, I mean the miracle would be God essentially snatching you out of the David persona and kind of dropping you in this Goliath. But this is a spiritual Goliath. This isn't some type of, big bad bully. It's nothing like that. But you become the backwards of whatever that story would be, right? And so you are going from the David into the Goliath. And listen, for some that opposed you during your David season, you are very much going to be, you are going to scare them. They will fear you, right? Because they have seen this miracle right before their eyes. Who you used to be, who they considered you to be, all the reasons that they determined that you were less than and you didn't compare to them. That's about to change. So we are talking about there is an inner divinity in you that has been turned on. And this is literally by the hand of God. And so anything that you believe you deserve, you do. The joy, the blessings, the things that you did not have access to in your past version of life, those things are going to be flowing to you in all directions, right? And so we're talking about good fortune. Now, many times when we think of fortune and blessings, we think of tangible, earthly materials, cars, houses, clothes, finances. But I want us to understand, in order for us to get those things, first, the blessings and the fortune that we must consider, it should be peace of mind. It should be healing, right? It should be patience, kindness. And so we are essentially wanting to be rebuilt from the inside out. And eventually we can count on the materials, but I know most often blessings, we think of the things that we can touch and see. But this is a process, and this has been a process. And so the aspects of you that have been broken down and scattered are going to be rebuilt, and those are all going to take place internally first, if that makes sense. Now, this is the moment where you become Goliath, but you are a divine being. This is when, if you ever doubted that you were divine, this is where you become absolutely sure. And for all those that even doubted that you deserve to breathe or exist, or, they had no regard for your life, they are going to realize that you are divine. Now, the thing about being divine is it's a blessing and it's a warning. It's a blessing because it's like, oh my God, I'm divine. And then the warning is like, oh God, I'm divine, right? Because we understand that with divinity, this is a battle, right? We are spirits in a physical body. And this earthly realm is a very hard planet to navigate. This is essentially school. Okay. And so there are many people who don't want to take the classes that are required to become a divine being. Now you have taken the classes, passed the classes, you've got your cap and gown, right? And so now you are walking in your divinity. But that is a rare type of skill set on this planet. Vibrationally, people tend to live in their lower chakras, right? They never really ascend to the heart. They never get to the higher level of their own consciousness. And so you are rare. And so if you can consider why that would be a warning and a blessing, not that you won't persevere or overcome, but you understand that there is a certain amount of force that you are going to feel resisting you as you navigate life, right? And so nothing I said means that you should start to move in fear. No, you proceed with love over fear, right? You love unconditionally. There's a certain respect and high regard and understanding that you have to have for yourself, for your position, and for spirit, right? And so when you make choices, you have to make choices that are for the greater good. There's a level of selflessness that comes with your divinity. Now, something about your voice, your throat chakra, the way you speak about others, no matter what you've been through, there's a level of grace and integrity that you have extended them because you understand we are all playing in a cosmic play, right? And this is the play where light and dark are battling. And listen, you can only be on one side. Yes, there are plenty of fence sitters, the NPCs, the non-playable characters, people who don't really choose. They just kind of exist in this world, right? And they have no idea what we are going through. Like they just wouldn't get it, right? And guess what? In this version of their life, in this incarnation, they aren't supposed to get it. Everybody is doing exactly what they are supposed to do at the right time. Now, that is a big concept to be able to grasp if you are still going through your own battles, right? That's hard to and that's fine because we are all in different spaces, right? And so in this space, you have realized that you are divine, right? The old version of you has gone through some type of transformation that can only be described as a miracle. Nothing else makes sense, right? And so there is this change. And with this change comes promise. This is a confirmation that, listen, something is guiding your life. God is real. And for those that were godless, for those that didn't really understand what divinity was. It wasn't just having a cross tattoo. It's not just wearing a cross chain. It's not going to church every Sunday and sitting in the pew and paying your tithes. That is not divinity, right? That's just an institutionalized way of practicing faith or spirituality. But none of that indicates what is inside of you. Now, you could have done none of those things, right? And so this is why this is a miracle. Because everybody that thought they were doing it the right way, they didn't understand that they were persecuting you for being outside of whatever they considered the norm, the natural, and the comfortable. Okay? And so this is where we meet the true God, right? And it is happening through you. And I want you to know that your trials and the pain and anything that you endured, it was a necessary part of the story. And I'm not saying it's necessary because I want to overlook, but I'm just saying, depending on what chapter you're in of your own life, you may be able to receive that well. And some may not be, right? There was a period of time where I wouldn't be able to handle somebody saying that to me because I'm like, oh, really? Like, you have no idea. And so I'm not being insensitive. I'm just saying that the story isn't over. And if what I said doesn't agree with you, I'm telling you to continue to read on, continue to turn your own pages in your own book of life, because I want you to see that this ends very differently than how it began, okay? So we have our family in the story. I have the card that literally talks about family. Those are those bonds, those people that we once shared a home with, When we look at the background of our life, these are the people that would make up the background. Now, your family has been waiting and waiting. It's almost like you work 2 weeks and now you're waiting on your direct deposit and your check never hits your account. That's the energy I'm getting, right? So they were waiting and they were watching and they were smiling. They were anticipating and expecting an outcome, and it didn't come, right? And what did come is Goliath. Can you imagine waiting on little David to collapse and little David morphs into Goliath, and now you are just dwarfed by the presence and by the essence of this being that you have abused and ridiculed and ostracized and done all these awful things to? Like, can you imagine? Like, it is almost like you possess the divine cheat code and you are just about to like push the buttons and activate it, right? Now, they were waiting on something, they were looking forward to something hitting. They were looking forward their check to drop, right? So all of the work they were doing, they wanted to see the outcome of their efforts, and it didn't come. Now, the problem is for them is that you were being protected in your own bubble of solitude and isolation, right? And so they think that because they can't see you, because you have cut them off, because they can't hear from you, they think that everything that they have done is working. They think that you're afraid to come out of the hole. You've barricaded yourself inside of some type of, you know what I mean? That's what they are believing, right? And so what they don't get is that when we are in solitude, that is our time alone. We are not relying on the opinions of others, right? We are learning to be our own counsel. Think about all the years that we didn't trust ourselves, right? And because we didn't trust ourselves, we gave grace to people that really wanted to bring us harm. And so solitude is about taking back our power, our voice, and kind of restoring our balance in our own relationship with ourselves. So we're talking about self-reliance, where you realize that you are your own entity, right? And so trusting your instincts is what kind of activates your level of protection. Now, we've been protected our entire life, right? But I feel like the level of protection that you have changes, right? Now you can go into different types of warfare, types of situations, whether we want to or not, right? And so our bubble, our sphere is getting stronger. It can handle more, right? And its ability to bounce back and to respond is going to be much quicker now. We can heal faster, right? In solitude, your creativity is at its peak because it is just you and God, right? And so one of the telltale signs that God is present in your life is that you get these downloads through your crown chakra. These are sparks of inspiration, ideas that literally came out of nowhere, right? And creativity is about creation, right? And so when you are operating in your creativity, you are mimicking the creator. You are bringing something to form. And so this happens in solitude. Now, no one imagined that you were in solitude creating something. No one imagined that you were trusting yourself. You were counseling yourself. You were loving on yourself, right? And so you are being trusted where you are led. And if you are not supposed to open the door and engage with people, you don't open the door. If you are not supposed to go hang out in that certain area or answer that phone call, respond to that text, open that email, then you're just not doing it. So you are following where you are led. And at one point, I think that these people were able to lead you in places that were just against the divine's will, right? And so they are misunderstanding your season of solitude. And so they are sending and sending and sending and sending and sending. But guess what? The direct deposit never hit, right? And so when you are protected, we are talking about you being safe in all matters of the body, physically safe, right? Your mind. And so your brain, your mind, you have befriended your own mind. You are not battling. You're not going back and forth. You are not doubting, right? You are not condemning and judging yourself. You truly are a friend with your mind. And then your spirit, right? Your spirit is protected. And so now every aspect of your being has just stepped into this safe zone where you almost become untouchable. You are taken care of, right? And so this means that no harm will come good to you because the highest good, the highest guidance that you can receive, it has covered you, right? This is why being on our path and being in alignment is such a beautiful thing, because it comes with perks and bells and whistles, right? Now, once you have reached your protection, you experience no more delays in moving forward. Sometimes delays and setbacks and trials and battles are because we are outside of our path. And every time we experience something that causes some type of discomfort or pain, it essentially is pushing us left, right, forward, or backward to get us where we are supposed to go. Okay. And so the people that are still sending something to you, they didn't realize, I've got the energy of the eightfold path, that you have aligned your entire existence as it should be, like you are all the way live, right? And so this family they were sending something to you, right? Now, this could be some form of illness, but they were thinking that you were sick. They were thinking that you were weak, that you were frail, that you were licking your wounds, right? They had no idea what you were doing inside. Now, you are coming up as this Queen of Wands. And remember, Queen just means that there is a feminine energy in you, which we all carry, that is confident and bold, right? Passionate and determined. And so listen, if you are starting to get this spark and this fire and this sexiness and this drive and this appeal, they wanted to weaken that. They didn't want you to believe in yourself. They didn't want you to think that you had anything to do or say outside of what they had already sanctioned for your life, right? And so the goal was to break your own spirit, to get you to lose confidence in yourself, in your mission, in your ability. They didn't want you to think, the Queen of Wands can captivate a room. You can step into a room and everybody notices when that energy comes in. Everybody looks. And there's not necessarily anything that you have to say, but it is the energy and the essence that is just like vibrating off of your being that forces heads to turn. That is what was supposed to be broken and hidden and weakened, right? Nobody was supposed to see you or look at you. I'm kind of getting that Cinderella thing based on how the stepmother and the sisters treated Cinderella. They want everybody else to fall in line and to treat Cinderella in the way that they perceive Cinderella to be, right? And so you need to be in rags. You don't need to wear the finer things, right? You don't deserve to sit at the table with us because we have determined that you are weaker, okay? And so when you start to develop a sense of who you are divinely, you start to change, right? Like those projections, those beliefs and those ideas, they just don't fit anymore. Now, I have the noble truth, the fourth noble truth, right? Which is when you realize that, oh, my suffering can end. Suffering is not an endless, it can end, and I can be in control of when it ends. And so this is that Queen of Wands. You have stepped into this bold, this level of power. It's because you have made peace with your suffering, because you have realized that, listen, in order for me to end this, I need to do a few things, right? This is how you get to the eightfold path. I mentioned that in maybe the last reading, but it's going to keep coming up. So by way of living ethically, suffering can end, right? By practicing meditation. And meditation is essentially you kind of rebranding your idea of what your mind is and what it can do and what it can't do. And so whatever the Matrix has kind of like forced us to think the brain is for or how to be used, meditation is just a way to hack whatever the Matrix has done to us. And so by practicing it, and it doesn't always look the same. Immediately when I hear meditation, I kind of get aggravated because I think it's like sitting crisscross applesauce or whatever that pose is, not to be disrespectful for those that do this, but this is just my mind, like crisscross applesauce, hands out to the side, right? It is so opposite of what is comfortable. I like to move. I like to go. Now sometimes stillness is required, right? But there are many ways to meditate. So this is you becoming one with your own consciousness, without the influence of the outside world, right? It's also ending your own suffering is developing wisdom, right? And so you have knowledge and then you have experience. So wisdom is applied knowledge. Like a lot of people can sit and talk about all the things that they know, but have you done it? Have you applied it, right? Have you seen it work in your own life? Where is the evidence of this? Right? And so that's what wisdom is. Wisdom. It's when somebody can show you the evidence of what it is that they are knowledgeable about, right? And it doesn't mean that they have succeeded, right? Failure is very much a quick way to get some wisdom, right? By not getting something right, by going against ourselves, by doing something wrong. That is wisdom. We need those moments. And then lastly, it's about enlightenment. And so listen, light. Once you do the work, you can almost ascend in your own body. You can access information. You can get to awareness. And so there are levels to your growth, and this is all happening internally. This is what was supposed to be broken, right? But listen, this is a voyage for you. Little, I almost sang the lyrics. You know, the song was like, little do they know. I almost sang it. But you have to get ready. So you were getting ready, and they thought that you were trying to heal. They thought that you were about to be done, never to return again, right? There is some type of project. There's something that happened in your solitude. There is something that happened in your solitude, and it is about to come to life. And so you are being asked to get ready because you did what you were supposed to do. You ended your own suffering, right? You've reached the eightfold path. You went through all the levels of understanding what it was that was required for you in order to get to this divine space. You didn't get here because you got here because of what you've done. Sometimes I think we just have to celebrate who we are and how we contributed to like getting it right finally. And so you have clear vision, right? And this is the moment where like, what do I want to experience? You are commanding your own ship, your own vessel. You are ready to enjoy this journey, right? This is where you're about to be what you've always wanted to be. And you are about to do what you've always wanted to do. And you are in control. And these people are disgusted. Why? Because the idea was that they would have been able to slay you, right? They thought that they could literally, sometimes my 4-year-old says, dead him up. I dead him up. But they wanted to dead you up. They wanted to kill your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, right? But a natural disaster was triggered when you survived. Yeah, you could have been knocked off your feet. Yeah, you could have been, in the storm, right? You could have been in storms again and again and again and again. But what you possessed was patience. To be able to walk through a storm and to still be quiet and to still be still, that's next level. And patience isn't always about waiting for the storms to pass. It's about how you wait, right? All of us have to wait every day for something. But it is the energy and the manner in which you wait that determines if you possess patience. And so you were on a karmic path with disaster after disaster after disaster. And you come out in this position as the hanged man, where you're like, you know what? I surrender. Clearly, there is nothing I can do here, right? There is no action. There is no thought. There is nothing that I can do to change this situation. And so this is patience, being able to accept that no is no, stop is stop, right? If you don't have it, then this is not the season I'm supposed to have it in. If I can't go, then this is not the season where I am supposed to go, right? This is like accepting that this is bigger than me, right? I'm going through things that I genuinely can't explain, right? It is making no sense, but there is something inside of you that is like, listen, you're being guided. And so when you step into this hangman position, this is almost like you recognizing that something outside of you exists. This is like that moment. Sometimes we hear come to Jesus, but this is like the moment where you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to sit this one out because I don't have the skill set to be able to make this a different situation, at least right now, right? And so that is what the karmic path is. The karmic path is essentially being able to learn a new valuable lesson. Lessons are not always going to be comfortable. But the karmic path, it takes hard work. It takes perseverance, right? This is a learning experience. But this is also where you build structure, right? This is where you gain all the tools and you gain all the experience that are required for you to live the rest of your life. And so you're getting tools, right? It's essentially you walking around at Lowe's or Home Depot with a shopping cart, and you're just picking up the things that you need to build the next chapter, the next version, the next story of your own life, right? You are being taught something. You are not being punished. You are being asked to stop because something ahead is hard to see, right? Something lies ahead, right? Don't go forward. The truth will emerge soon. Just don't go. Listen to your intuition, right? Visibility is obscured right now. So please hold on, right? We're not being punished, right? Something is still loading. And so let me explain this. So when we are going through these karmic seasons and lessons, and we need to be patient, we need to kind of just surrender and wait. Sometimes we are gaining tools internally that we will need for the next season. So our other senses are being heightened. We don't have the ability to see what we need to see to go forward, but we are picking up senses. We are getting new sensations. We are, something else is happening. And so I want us to consider, that when we are moving through storms and really we know that we can't control a thing, consider the fact that something beneath the surface is taking place. I do want to mention something, talking just about knowledge. If life were a class, the best student in that class is you, right? Because you are living your own life in a way that no one else on this earth will ever be able to live it. This is your class. You are your best student and the greatest student in terms of your life being your curriculum, right? And this is what you study. You study yourself. You study your experience. You consider the things that you've been through. You think of the lessons that are most likely going to come ahead for you. And so the idea is to remain teachable, right? And so when you were in hibernation, you remained teachable. You remained a lifelong learner, a forever student of your experience. You didn't give up. You just went harder. You went deeper, right? And so this is when new wisdom becomes available to you. This is when you start to get more information, the information that you need in order to proceed forward. Now, this is what is making your family sick, is that you didn't stop. You just dug deep, right? And so this is how we get to the Akashic records, right? This is essentially it could be our syllabus, right? And our transcript. It is everything that we are in this existence from beginning to end. It tells you all about yourself. And so when you agree that you will always be a committed student to your life and to never quit, to never give up on yourself, to never allow one bad teacher or one bad experience to knock you off of your education career, right? When you agree to show up every day, to come to class and to be present, to try to give it your all, that changes things, right? And so the fact that you didn't quit, you stayed committed to the journey, the sickness that was supposed to send to you, that level of weakness, something and someone or groups of people are feeling that outside of you. And so you have learned how to access your own records, right? And I'm not saying that you've done some type of ritual or ceremony to get to your Akashic records, but sometimes I don't think that we understand how easy it is for us to just receive these flashes of insight that tell us to go left, to stop, to go right. There is something internal. It's like you have your own GPS and you are moving in alignment with the turns, the stops, you were there. You are finally there. Now, there are certain aspects of your journey where you are going to have to draw in the right teachers, but your greatest teacher will be you. Know that, okay? This is the moment you weren't supposed to get there. You were never supposed to access your higher self, your full presence, your full I am presence. You were never supposed to make it, right? And you survived because you surrendered, because you were patient, because you agreed to learn, okay? And so now we get to this point where you have finally stepped into this alliance, right? You are in alliance with your own story, your own essence. You are reading your own book. The pages are blank and you're writing them, and you're allowing the energy of your life to determine what you write next, right? You are no longer at the mercy of your environment, of your relationships, of the commitments that you have tied yourself to. Like, you have the pen. You have the pen. I do want to mention that when we go through whatever these trials are that we've been through, keeping our own waters pure is what guarantees that we get to the end. And what I'm saying is, no persecution that you felt, did you ever feel that it was right to curse somebody? To do, to bring evil. A curse is essentially an evil, a way to bring harm to someone. You never curse them with your hands. I'm so congested. Excuse me, guys. You never curse them with your hands. You never curse them with your tongue or your heart or your mind. You never, ever cursed those that cursed and persecuted you. And you stayed pure. You stayed pure, which means that you always had room for God to be inside of you. You never became so dark with the journey that God had nowhere else to live except for outside of you, right? You never separated yourself from the divine that dwells in you. You stayed clean. Now, it doesn't mean you didn't get anger and you weren't crying and you weren't mad. No, we're talking about emotion, and then we're talking about those that have an emotion and then they want to put that emotion into action, right? That's a different level of crazy, right? No, you felt the pain, you cried, you felt the sadness, you grieved, you mourned, you lost, right? You overcame, like you did it all and you felt it all. And never once did you decide that vengeance was yours. No, you just surrendered, right? And so you made space for like God to be to come through and vindicate you. Like, you made space for God to work, for God to move through you, right? And so this is why you're at this stage of the costume change. This is why you get to become Goliath, right? You are David in a new form. They didn't see this coming. And you had to go through a period of recovery. You had to recoup. You absolutely did, right? I kind of posted a reading about being in the flow. You essentially moved with life. You didn't resist. Even when you knew wrong things were happening, you didn't fight against it. You were just like, fine, right? I'll let it go. I'll let it go. And so you started to move in the direction of life, right? You were like, I don't need to be right? I don't need to prove to others that I am right about what I know, what I believe, what I feel. I'm just going to let this thing play out. So this is when you essentially become the spectator of your own life, and you watch the divine that is guiding your life move, right? It's really beautiful. But it is so broken in so many ways that we can forget what is really happening, from a larger perspective. When you step into alliance, that means that you are no longer criticizing yourself for what was, for what couldn't have been, right? You are no longer judging yourself or others, because you understand that this is the way the story was written, and it was written this way for reason. And we may not always know the reason, which is why once you enter the flow, you should look for signs and you should follow them, right? Don't resist. Look for signs, look for symbols, look for wonders. These are the things that start to reveal to you all that was hidden and why things had to go the way they had to go, right? This is when you kind of release the old and you're comfortable saying, I let it go. I'm going to let it go and I'm going to be in the flow. So new doors are opening for you, right? Like you have reached the point of newness. You have reached the point of newness. There are new pathways that were once hidden or secret or unseen that are now going to be present. They are going to be known to you. This I've often seen some spiritualists do or offer a road opener service, right? So some curses, they want to block your path. They want you to never be able to get beyond a certain point. I've heard about freezer spells. I've heard about jar spells, right? I've heard about tying you to dead people, dead things, so that everything in your life essentially dies and nothing grows, right? And so this is that moment where you have opened your own roads. So new opportunities are going to present themselves, and any self-imposed prisons are just going to be released, right? All of a sudden you can get out of this box that you thought was truly your reality, or this version of self that you thought you would never be able to break out of. This is the road opening up for you. And the way you use your throat chakra is extremely important, because this is where you get to express your own divinity. This is where you get to share it. And whatever the arena is that you are in, I want you to be mindful of the power of your voice and the power of your tongue, even when it's written. Even when it's written, sometimes we may write things and we think that because we can delete them, that they do not exist. But the universe felt the energy, and it knows that that is the energy that you sent out. So be mindful of how you are communicating, because what you say to another, what you say about another, is genuinely what you are saying about your own self. That is an energy that has come outside of you, so it is attached to you, even if you are trying to project it elsewhere. The universe knows you said it. And so that is the energy you are sitting in. And so I think that is really important about why you get to now transform into David and Goliath, because you never were upset with being David, right? And you didn't necessarily curse Goliath for being Goliath. You just were able to see the God in the story. And sometimes we can't see the divine, but though that's expected, right? We're still picking up the tools we need in the hardware store. So, and sometimes faith and trust and hope and intuition and instinct, we haven't gotten those tools yet. But the fact that you were willing to continue to shop for the right tool, you were willing to remain teachable, you were willing to be still and to surrender. Those were the tools, those were the long-lasting tools. That is what got you the ability to get to those new tools that you need for this next season. And so this is a beautiful journey, and sometimes it is beautifully broken. And so if you have made it to this point where others are about to recognize the mightiness in you, the giant that you are, you may be small on the earth side, but in the spiritual realm, you are massive, you are great, and you are mighty. Right? And all of that force comes through a very gentle vessel, a vessel that has been broken, abused, right? But you are patient, and the power of patience, if we only just let God do God, we would be so thankful. And most of our journey, most of the beginning of it, we will resist, because we need to learn where our power ends and where God's power begins. So when we are stubborn and we resist and we fight, we need that so that we can see the extent to which our own power goes, right? So don't beat wherever you are is where you are supposed to be. Absolutely. I love you. And I thank you so much for coming to this one. I'll see you on the next talk.